warm desert wind sighs across the high mesas of northern Arizona. The moon is thin, the stars uncompromisingly bright, and the only sound is the distant yip of coyotes until something else rustles in the sage. Among the Navajo, there is a word whispered only in low voices, Ye Naldlushi, roughly. With it, he goes on all fours. Outsiders translate it as Skinwalker. But to call a Skinwalker a creature is misleading. In traditional teaching, it is a witch in human skin, a man or woman who has turned away from the Navajo way of harmony, Hojo, and embraced the darkest possible power. According to legend, a would-be Skinwalker must commit an unthinkable act, often the murder of a close relative, to sever ordinary ties to humanity. In return, they gain the ability to don the pelt of an animal, coyote, wolf, owl, fox, and become that animal at will. Their eyes, some say, keep a disturbingly human intelligence. Their footprints may shift from paw to bare heel without warning. Skinwalkers are spoken of rarely and carefully. To name one aloud is to risk drawing its attention. Yet, on cold campfire nights, stories persist of enormous coyotes that laugh like people, of owls whose yellow gaze feels calculating, of hoofprints that stop abruptly as if the walker leapt into the sky. Within the Navajo Nation, stories of skinwalkers are not shared lightly. These tales are wrapped in cultural taboos, often only whispered among trusted family members, and never discussed with outsiders unless there's a sense of deep trust. To many Navajo, even acknowledging a skinwalker's existence can be dangerous, an invitation. Skinwalkers are believed to travel swiftly by night, often taking the form of predatory animals, coyotes, wolves, foxes, crows, owls. These forms allow them to stalk without detection, to cross long distances quickly, and to observe unseen. In their human form, they are often described as gaunt, twisted figures with hollow eyes and an unnatural aura, witches who have shed their moral center. They are said to haunt graveyards, crossroads, and the perimeters of tribal lands, places where the spiritual veil is thinner. They leave behind trails of fear, animals found mutilated, families cursed, the sick made sicker, strange illnesses afflicting those who cross them. In some accounts, skinwalkers use corpse powder, a cursed dust made from the remains of the dead, to harm their targets. More than monsters, skinwalkers represent a profound violation of Navajo spiritual law. They invert the sacred ways, using rituals meant for healing and protection to bring suffering and chaos. In this way, they are not just beings of folklore, but warnings about the danger of power unmoored from community and the spiritual cost of betrayal. For these reasons, the fear of skinwalkers is deep, cultural, and very real. Even today, many Navajo will refuse to speak of them during certain times of year, especially during the dark winter months when spirits are said to move more freely. It was a quiet autumn evening on the outskirts of the Navajo Nation. A family, mother, father, and 2 children, were inside their modest home finishing dinner. Outside, their dogs began barking, first one, then all 3, howling and growling toward the edge of the darkened property. The father stepped out with a flashlight, the cold air biting at his skin. His beam caught the glint of something tall, animal-shaped, hunched, just beyond the wooden fence line. It looked like a wolf, but too large, far too still. Its eyes shone, not with animal fear or curiosity, but with something disturbingly intelligent. The creature did not flinch when the flashlight caught it squarely. It simply stared. The dogs whined, tails between their legs, refusing to approach. Grabbing his rifle, the father fired. The shot echoed across the silent desert. The beast didn't fall. Instead, it turned slowly and loped away, its movement eerily smooth, almost fluid. The family stood frozen until the thing disappeared into the brush. The next morning, they found tracks. Gigantic paw prints led away from the fence. They followed them down a gully until the prints suddenly stopped. There, in the soft dirt, the paw prints became bare human footprints mid-stride. Then, nothing, as if the figure had vanished into the air. No blood, no fur, no explanation. The family left tobacco at the edge of the gully, a traditional offering and a plea for protection. They never saw the creature again. But they never let the fire die overnight after that. Far from Arizona, in Utah's remote Uinta Basin, lies a property now infamous among paranormal researchers, Skinwalker Ranch. Though the name was later applied due to local Native American lore, it's the strange and violent phenomena reported by the Sherman family in the 1990s that brought the site global attention. Terry and Gwen Sherman had only just moved onto the ranch when the strangeness began. One of the first incidents involved a giant wolf, far larger than any they'd seen. It calmly approached them and even allowed Terry to pet it through a fence. Moments later, it lunged and grabbed a calf by the snout. Terry grabbed his rifle and fired point blank into the animal. It didn't flinch. He fired again and again until it finally trotted off. They followed its massive tracks, which suddenly stopped as if the beast had vanished into thin air. Over time, the Shermans reported disembodied voices speaking in unknown languages, glowing red eyes peering at them from the dark, and several cattle mutilations, some surgically precise, with no blood or struggle. Tools would vanish from locked barns, strange lights zipped across the sky, and one night, an unearthly portal appeared, emitting a brilliant blue light. Eventually, the Shermans abandoned the ranch. It was soon purchased by billionaire Robert Bigelow, who placed it under the purview of NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, a research team dedicated to studying paranormal phenomena. Surveillance was set up around the clock. Though scientists observed odd magnetic readings, unexplained animal behavior, and further cattle losses, no definitive conclusion was reached. Some researchers left convinced something real was happening, though its nature remained elusive. Others suspected psychological contagion, government experimentation, or natural phenomena misinterpreted under stress. Still, Skinwalker Ranch remains one of the most heavily monitored and hotly debated sites of alleged supernatural activity in the U.S., a modern frontier where folklore, fear, and science collide. So what exactly are skinwalkers said to be capable of? Across Navajo stories and modern retellings, certain traits and powers appear again and again, sometimes terrifying in their implications. Shapeshifting. At the core of the legend is the ability to transform at will into animals. Most often, this includes predators, such as wolves, coyotes, owls, or foxes. In some versions, skinwalkers can even become other people, mimicking a victim's appearance. This power is tied to wearing the skin of the chosen creature, often a pelt or bone remnant. Mimicry and deception. Skinwalkers are believed to mimic human voices or familiar sounds to lure victims. One of the most chilling accounts involves people hearing their names called from just outside their homes, only to find no one there. In some stories, the voice is that of a recently deceased loved one, or even their own voice. Supernatural speed and strength. They are said to run faster than any animal, leap over cliffs or mesas, and move with a blur-like swiftness. Some accounts tell of them keeping pace with moving vehicles or vanishing into thin air. Invulnerability. Conventional weapons are often said to have little effect. Bullets pass through them. Blades don't cut. In certain Navajo traditions, only white ash or items imbued with strong spiritual protection can cause harm to a skinwalker. Psychological manipulation. Perhaps most disturbingly, skinwalkers are not just physical threats. They are also feared as masters of spiritual intrusion. Victims speak of dreams invaded by monstrous forms, waking visions, unexplained illness, or long strings of bad luck, all believed to be caused by skinwalker curses. Whether real or symbolic, the skinwalker's powers reflect profound anxieties. That evil wears familiar shapes, speaks with loved ones' voices, and knows us better than we know ourselves. Though rooted in ancient lore, encounters with skinwalkers have not faded into the past. From online forums to late-night radio shows, modern witnesses continue to report chilling experiences that defy easy explanation. Midnight on Highway 491, one truck driver hauling freight through northwestern New Mexico recounted a disturbing night. Just past midnight, a large coyote darted across the road, and despite braking hard, he struck it square on. When he exited the cab to check for damage or a carcass, he saw the creature rise on two legs and stare at him, eyes glowing amber. Then it turned and walked upright into the sagebrush. The driver never finished that route again. The shadow that followed. A group of teenagers, returning from a late-night bonfire near the edge of the Navajo Nation, noticed something trailing their car. At first, it seemed like an animal, lean, four-legged, loping in the dark. But soon it accelerated, keeping pace with the vehicle at 60 miles. As it drew closer, they realized it wasn't running. It was gliding, almost hovering, and its form began to change, stretching unnaturally, limbs elongating. They sped away in terror. None of them could describe its face, only the feeling of being watched, even hours later. Whispers at the window. A woman living near Gallup, New Mexico, shared a tale passed down from her grandmother. One winter night, she awoke to the sound of someone knocking gently on the window. 3 slow taps. Her grandmother, wide-eyed, told her not to move or answer. "It knows your name now," she whispered. The next morning, no footprints were found outside the window, despite fresh snow. While skinwalker stories chill the spine and ignite the imagination, it's important to approach them with both curiosity and cultural respect. Among the Navajo and many other Native American tribes, these legends are not just spooky campfire tales. They are expressions of spiritual truth, shaped by centuries of belief, morality, and social memory. To outsiders, it may be tempting to view the Skinwalker legend through a purely entertainment or horror lens. But within Navajo tradition, these beings are deeply intertwined with notions of balance and betrayal. A skinwalker is not a random monster. It is the ultimate cautionary tale. A person who violates sacred law, abuses knowledge meant for healing, and uses ritual power for selfish ends. In that sense, the skinwalker is less like a werewolf and more like a fallen shaman, twisted by choice. Skeptics might argue that many alleged sightings are the result of misidentifications, psychological suggestion, or even elaborate hoaxes. Coyotes behave unpredictably. Stress can alter perception, and in rural areas, stories can snowball into local legend. But to reduce all reports to mere imagination is to ignore the powerful cultural frameworks that give them meaning. Moreover, many Navajo people refuse to speak of skinwalkers not because they fear ridicule, but because they genuinely believe that doing so invites danger. These beliefs aren't just metaphysical, they're practical, woven into rituals, taboos, and daily caution. As interest in skinwalkers grows online and in popular media, it's essential to separate appropriation from understanding. The legend's power lies not only in its horror, but in its cultural specificity. Respect means not just repeating the stories, but listening to the people they belong to and honoring the world they describe. The legend of the Skinwalker endures because it taps into something primal, our fear of betrayal, of corrupted power, and of the thin line between human and beast. Whether viewed as a supernatural reality or a symbolic warning, skinwalkers haunt not just the mesas of the Southwest, but the moral boundaries of every society. They are more than monsters. They are mirrors, reflecting what happens when the sacred is profaned, when the healer becomes the hunter, and when humanity loses its way in the pursuit of forbidden power. And perhaps that is why, on moonless nights in the desert, even the most skeptical among us might still glance over our shoulders, just to be sure we're alone.